Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun rose tentatively over the city rooftops, illuminating the narrow windows of Clara Thompson's apartment. At 32, this black woman, alone for too long, had learned to survive in a world where love and stability seemed luxuries reserved for others. But in her arms, she held her most precious treasure, her 7-year-old son, Elijah. Every morning, as she mechanically prepared his breakfast, her eyes would rest on him. Elijah, despite his young age, had that quiet strength, that curious gaze that seemed to understand much more than he said. Clara knew she could weather any storm as long as he was by her side. Society, with its silent judgments and unrealistic expectations, told her repeatedly that a single woman needed a husband to be complete. But Clara knew that true love, true protection, and true pride were already found in her son's shining eyes. Elijah was her reason for getting up every morning, her motivation, and her legacy. This isn't a story about a woman looking for a man to fill a void. It's a story about a mother and her son, about a bond so strong that nothing and no one could ever break it. And what they were about to go through together would change their lives, and perhaps the lives of everyone who thought they knew what true strength was. The alarm rang at 6:30, but Clara had already been up for a few minutes, silently watching her son still sleeping in his little bed, covered with a star-patterned duvet. Every morning, she took a moment to watch him breathe, to etch into her memory the perfection of this little being she protected from everything. Elijah finally woke with a yawn and a smile, his bright black eyes reflecting the morning light. "Good morning, Mom," he whispered as he stood up. Clara responded with a tired but tender smile. These simple moments, these everyday gestures, were their bubble of happiness in an often hostile world. After a quick breakfast of toast and milk, Clara helped Elijah pack his school bag. The streets of their neighborhood were bustling with activity from dawn, street vendors hawked their wares, neighbors chatted on the sidewalks, and in the distance, the sound of cars seemed to herald the day's bustle. Clara knew that being a single mother required her to be strong, stronger than she had ever been. Her past was marked by failed relationships and betrayals, but she had learned to transform her pain into strength. "I don't need a husband," she often told herself. "Elijah is enough for me." That day, an unexpected event would change their routine. As Clara walked down the street to drop Elijah off at school, she saw a scene that made her heart beat a little faster. A little boy her age was in tears, surrounded by police officers. Their movements were abrupt, and their authority seemed to overwhelm the young boy. Elijah instinctively grabbed his hand, as if sensing something important was happening. Clara felt a dull anger rising within her. She approached, determined to protect this child, and at that precise moment, she knew that her life and Elijah's were about to take an unexpected turn. Clara didn't hesitate for a second. She crossed the street with Elijah holding her hand tightly, and approached the police officers surrounding the crying boy. His gaze was both determined and protective. "Excuse me, sir, what's going on here?" she asked in a clear voice, exuding a natural authority that surprised the police officers. One of them, a tall, impatient-looking man, looked at her condescendingly. "None of your business, madam." But Clara didn't back down. "If you're not careful, you risk traumatizing this child for life." Her voice trembled slightly, but there was an undeniable strength in her tone. Elijah stood by her side, silent, but his eyes shone with pride. He knew his mother's determination. After a few tense seconds, the policeman sighed and gestured toward the boy. "Come on, little girl, that's enough now." But the boy's mother, who was running up, seemed relieved and grateful. She gave Clara a look that was a mixture of gratitude and admiration. Elijah, curious, asked his mother, "Mom, why didn't you let them do it?" Clara smiled softly, stroking her son's head. "Because it's never fair to see someone in pain, Elijah. And because you and I never let someone in distress go unchecked." As they continued their walk to school, Clara felt a mixture of pride and awe. Her life had always been marked by loneliness and hardship, but she knew that Elijah was growing every day by her side, learning courage, justice, and the importance of standing up, even in the face of injustice. As he entered the school, Elijah took one last look at his mother, as if to silently say, "I want to be like you, Mom." And Clara knew at that precise moment that, as long as they were together, no obstacle was insurmountable. That evening, Clara returned home with Elijah after a long day. The apartment seemed smaller than usual, the white walls reflecting accumulated fatigue. Still, Clara forced a smile for her son, who was already skipping around the small kitchen table. As she was preparing dinner, a dull thud echoed from the doorway. Clara froze. An envelope slid under the door. Intrigued, she picked it up and opened it. Inside was a letter from the building's landlord. They had 3 days to pay a considerable amount of back rent, or they would be evicted. Clara's heart sank. Anxiety rose, but she showed nothing to Elijah. She knelt down to be at his eye level, taking his small hands in hers. "Elijah, Mommy will take care of everything, but we're going to have to be very brave these next few days." The boy looked at her, a mixture of fear and confidence in his eyes. "Mom, you can do it, right?" he asked softly. Clara felt a surge of emotion. "Yes, my darling. We will find a solution, together. Always together." That night, after putting Elijah to bed, Clara sat at the kitchen table, examining her savings. The account wasn't enough. She knew she had to act quickly. Work more? Ask for help? The options seemed limited, but a new determination was growing within her. The next morning, she decided to do something she'd never done before. She went to a nearby neighborhood to offer her babysitting and cleaning services. There were many rejections, but Clara persevered. Each no strengthened her resolve. Meanwhile, Elijah, faithful to his mother, was brave at school, helping his classmates and listening attentively to Clara's advice. Their bond grew stronger with every moment. They were two souls united against a world that sometimes seemed to want to crush them. That day, Clara understood something essential: no matter the obstacles, as long as they knew they could count on each other, they could face any storm. The third day arrived faster than expected. Clara had exhausted all her options. She had worked late the day before cleaning a neighbor's house, offered her babysitting services, and even asked a trusted friend for a small loan, but there was still not enough money to cover the rent. As she walked home with Elijah after school, she spotted two familiar figures near the entrance of the building, the owner and his assistant. The owner's face was stern, marked by impatience and hostility. Clara felt her heart sink, but she forced herself to keep her posture straight, determined not to show her fear. "Ms. Thompson, we've been patient, but we can't wait any longer. The rent must be paid today, or—" The landlord trailed off, leaving the threat hanging. Elijah, who was walking beside his mother, felt his anxiety rising. But instead of getting scared, he moved closer to her and whispered, "Mom, we'll make it. I promise." Clara smiled, touched by her son's maturity. She took a deep breath and replied calmly, "Sir, I'm just asking for one more day. I'll pay you back, I promise." The owner looked at her coldly, then shrugged and left, leaving a palpable tension behind him. Clara closed the door and collapsed against it, feeling her shoulders grow heavy. But Elijah took her in his arms, as if to transmit his own strength. "Mom, I can help you," he said softly. "We can sell things, ask the neighbors, whatever it takes." That night, Clara and Elijah stayed up late, planning every possibility. They talked about everything: savings, odd jobs, even a bake and cookie sale Elijah could hold after school. Every idea, every plan was a step toward survival, but also a testament to their courage and their bond. For Clara, that night, one thing became clear: no matter the difficulties, as long as they were together, she had never been stronger. Elijah wasn't just her son, he was her partner, her inspiration, her reason to never give up. The next morning, Clara got up early, still feeling the strain of the previous days. Elijah, as usual, woke her with a bright smile and a little note he had written on a piece of paper. "Mom, we'll get through this together. I believe in us." This simple message brought new energy to Clara. She hugged her son and whispered, "Yes, my darling, we'll get there. After school, Elijah came up with an unexpected idea. "Mom, what if we did something original to make money? Not just cakes, something people won't forget." Clara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like what, my angel?" Elijah smiled mysteriously. "Me. I can play guitar on the street. People always give a little money when they see a talented child." Clara was surprised. Her son had never shown any real experience with music in public, but she knew his gift. Ever since he was little, Elijah had played little melodies on an old keyboard Clara had found at a garage sale. His music always had a strange power over those who listened to it. It touched hearts. "All right," she said, smiling despite her nervousness. "We'll try. But you have to be brave and stay focused." They spent the afternoon preparing the place where Elijah would play. Clara brought a small box for passers-by to donate coins to, and she encouraged him to practice a few pieces in their living room to build his confidence. That evening, on the busy sidewalk near the school, Elijah placed his small box in front of him and began to play. At first, a few passers-by glanced distractedly, but gradually, the melody attracted attention. The simple yet moving notes captivated passers-by, and soon, coins began to fall into the box. Clara, watching her son, felt her eyes moisten. "My God," she whispered. "He's truly amazing." This impromptu concert became a symbol of hope. Not only did they begin to scrape together some money for the rent, but Clara also realized that her son's resilience and talent could transform even the most difficult situations into unexpected opportunities. That day, Clara and Elijah discovered a profound truth: when we are together, even the greatest challenges can turn into miracles. A few days after their first street performance, Elijah and Clara were starting to feel a little more confident. Passers-by were stopping by more and more often, and Elijah's little box was slowly but surely filling up. One afternoon, as Elijah played a soft melody on his guitar, a black car pulled up in front of them. An elegant woman stepped out, dressed in an impeccable suit and carrying a discreet but luxurious handbag. Her eyes were fixed on the boy, captivated by the music. Clara felt her heart beat faster. The woman approached and said with a warm smile, "Excuse me. I couldn't help but listen to you. That boy plays incredibly well." Elijah blushed slightly, but Clara gave him an encouraging nudge with her shoulder. "Thank you, ma'am. He's my son." The woman looked at Clara carefully. "My name is Victoria Hayes. I work in the arts and run a small music school. Your son has a rare talent. I would love to invite him to come and play at our house, so that more people can hear him, and so that he has a chance to develop his gift." Clara felt a mixture of joy and disbelief. She looked at Elijah, whose eyes were shining with excitement. You mean he could learn to be a musician?" she asked, her voice trembling. Victoria nodded. "Yes, exactly. And if you agree, I can even help you through this difficult time with the rent. We can find a solution together." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes. After weeks of stress and anxiety, a ray of hope had materialized before their eyes. She hugged her son and whispered, "Elijah, look, everything might change for us." Elijah smiled, still holding his guitar close. "Mom, see? We can face anything, and now things are starting to get better." For Clara, that day was more than just a stroke of luck. It was proof that courage, perseverance, and the unconditional love between a mother and son could attract unexpected opportunities. Their lives, until then marked by struggle and survival, were beginning to take a turn toward hope and the possibility of a better future. The next day, Clara accompanied Elijah to the Victoria Hayes School of Music. The bright, welcoming building was a stark contrast to their modest apartment. The walls were decorated with photographs of young musicians performing, and the air was already vibrant with creative energy. Elijah was both nervous and excited. Victoria introduced him to a guitar teacher, a patient man named Marcus, who had taught many talented children. Marcus examined the boy's hands, his fingering, and smiled. "You have a natural talent, Elijah. With a little discipline and a lot of practice, you could become incredible. Clara listened in silence, her heart aching with pride. But she also knew the road would be difficult. Learning to master an instrument required time, patience, and total commitment. She looked at her son, who, without a word, sat down and began his first lesson. His fingers trembled slightly on the strings, but each note had a surprising clarity. Meanwhile, Clara was invited to speak with Victoria. The woman understood that she wasn't satisfied with raw talent, but needed stability to allow Elijah to flourish. Victoria offered Clara a small job at the school, helping with administrative tasks and thus providing her with a regular income. Clara accepted gratefully, tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt a safety net was being installed in their lives, something concrete and hoped for. Elijah and I will make it, she murmured to herself, her gaze fixed on her son, who was already applying himself passionately. As the weeks passed, Elijah progressed rapidly. Each precisely played note strengthened his confidence, and Clara realized that their daily struggle had forged a unique resilience in both of them. The community also began to notice the boy's talent. Neighbors, passers-by, and even parents of students now came to listen to him play after school. This chapter in their lives marked a turning point. Clara understood that the courage and unconditional love between a mother and son could not only overcome obstacles, but also create unexpected opportunities. Elijah was no longer just her son, he was a living symbol of their strength and determination. A few weeks after beginning music lessons, Clara and Elijah were beginning to feel confident. Life finally seemed to offer a glimmer of hope. Elijah was progressing rapidly, his music was captivating more and more people, and Clara had a stable job at the music school. But the peace was short-lived. One afternoon, as they were walking home from school, Clara received a call that made her heart race. It was the landlord of their building. His voice, icy and menacing, echoed through the phone. "Miss Thompson, I gave you a chance, but you're running late. If you don't pay now, you'll have to vacate the apartment." Clara felt a familiar panic rise within her, but she forced herself to remain calm in front of Elijah. The boy, who was walking beside her, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. "Mom, we can figure something out, right?" he asked, his expression serious for his age. Clara took a deep breath. She knew she had to be creative and courageous. "Yes, my angel, we will find a solution." They spent the evening considering all the possibilities. Selling personal items? Working later evenings? Organizing a small, more frequent street concert? Each idea seemed insufficient to cover the total amount, and doubts began to creep into Clara's mind. Elijah, sensing his mother's concern, gently placed his hand on hers. "Mom, you always taught me not to give up. And I don't want to give up either. We can do this together." These words touched Clara deeply. She understood that courage lay not only in her actions, but also in the confidence she inspired in her son. They decided to turn their fear into an action plan. They would organize an impromptu concert on the weekend, inviting neighbors and friends to come and hear Elijah play, while sharing the story of their struggle to raise the rent. It was a sleepless night for Clara, preparing every detail. And when morning came, despite her fatigue, she felt a new determination. No obstacle, no threat, could break their unity. Together, they would face this ordeal and show that love and perseverance could overcome even the darkest moments. On Saturday morning, Clara and Elijah rose early, their hearts filled with hope and nervousness. They set up a small, makeshift stage in front of the music school and decorated the space with a few handmade posters, inviting the neighborhood to come and listen to Elijah's talent and support their cause. The first passers-by stopped out of curiosity. Elijah, holding his guitar like a treasure, took a deep breath and began to play. Each note seemed to tell of their struggle, their hope, and their unwavering love. Clara watched in wonder as the melody captivated those who passed by. Gradually, the crowd grew. Neighbors brought benches, others refreshments for the spectators. The atmosphere was lively, warm, almost magical. And then, an unexpected surprise occurred. Victoria Hayes and some of her influential contacts in the music world arrived. Victoria stepped forward and smiled at Clara. "I told you this boy had a rare talent. Look, the whole neighborhood is captivated." As the coins fell into Elijah's box, Clara realized that the money raised would not only be enough to pay the rent, but would also provide enough for a few more weeks, providing an unexpected source of relief. But that wasn't all. A local producer, touched by the performance and the story of their determination, approached them and offered to organize small, regular gigs for Elijah, along with professional promotion. Clara felt her heart burst with gratitude and emotion. "Elijah," she whispered, hugging her son, "look what we've accomplished together. Your courage and your talent, they've transformed our lives." Elijah, his eyes shining, smiled humbly. "Mom, we did it together. Always together." This impromptu concert wasn't just a financial victory. It became a symbol of their resilience, their bond, and their ability to turn every challenge into an opportunity. Clara understood that life could offer unexpected miracles, especially when love and determination guide every action. And for the first time in a long time, she thought they didn't need a husband, or anyone else. As long as they had each other, anything was possible. A few months had passed since the famous impromptu concert. Clara and Elijah's lives had changed radically. Thanks to Elijah's talents and hard work, they now had financial stability and a promising future. Elijah continued his music lessons, but now in front of a larger audience. The small street performances had grown into events organized by Victoria and her local music contacts. Every note Elijah played carried the story of their courage and perseverance, inspiring those who listened. Clara, meanwhile, was thriving in her role at the music school. Her job not only provided her with a stable income, but also a network of support and friends who recognized her organizational skills and strength of character. She had never been prouder of her accomplishments. One afternoon, as they were walking home from a concert, Elijah took his mother's hand and said, "Mom, see? We didn't need anyone else. You and me, we're all we need." Clara smiled, moved to tears. She remembered the sleepless nights, the moments of fear, the letters threatening rent, and her son's worried looks. It all seemed distant now, like an ordeal that had forged their resilience. "Yes, my darling," she replied softly, hugging Elijah close. "We have everything we need, and we will keep moving forward, always together." The city, once a place that seemed to crush them under the weight of hardship, was now the scene of their victory. Their efforts, courage, and unwavering love had created a better life, full of possibilities. And so, Clara understood a profound truth: you don't need a husband to be complete. The strength of a mother, the courage of a son, and the love that unites them can transform the darkest challenges into a bright and inspiring future. As the sun set over the horizon, Clara and Elijah walked side by side, their shadows long on the sidewalk, symbolizing an unbreakable union, ready to face each new day with confidence and pride.